Fancy. So I hope this mic here will make my accent a little better than it is. Let me see, or worse. How's that go? Glad to be here. I'd like to thank you everybody for coming. Yeah, it's always a great day when you have all the friends and partners around here. So it's a good day. And after being around Dr. Arrington for a while now, I became a storyteller too. So I promise that my stories will be shorter. So, and now we start with one. It is actually a true story that I had an experience here. I actually told that story to our advisory meeting here for our committee. I went to Manatee County to get my gate, the gate of my house fixed. And I went there there was a gentleman over there that I was talking to him about getting that stuff fixed. And he pretty fast he realized that I was not from Wauchula, right? I was from somewhere else. And he asked me, where are you from? I said, yeah, I'm originally from Brazil, but I live in Wauchula. And he said, how somebody from Brazil we ended up in Wauchula? I said, yeah, that's an interesting question, but yeah. And I told him I work at the Range Cattle Research Center down at Ona. And I asked him, do you know about the research center? And he looked at me and said, oh, sure, I am a member. I said, well, you are a member of the research center. And I was puzzled by that. I was wondering if Dr. Arrington was selling membership to get more money. I didn't know if that was allowed or not, but I was just wondering. But the truth of the matter, he said, I am a member of the Florida Cattlemen Association. And he thinks that the research center here is the Florida Cattlemen's Association Research Center. So he's a member of the Florida Cattlemen, so he's a member of this center here. And that's just an example of how our clientele research center, and that's the way that it is. You don't need to work here for a long time. I've been here for 5 years now, and that's the way that it is. So we have partners, we have friends, and they are most of them members of the Florida Cattlemen, and we all appreciate what they do for us. Okay, and now I will try to make that brief, and I'll talk to you a little bit about Ford. And I received a lot of phone calls and all different questions, and pretty soon we realized that the most important thing in this Ford business is to have a good plan. Is to really have a good plan and a good objective, because now with all the inputs that we have in that system, they are so expensive. And fertilizer, and tractor, diesel, and everything that you need to put in. So the wise and the best thing to do is start thinking about and planning about planting and using the Ford that will be the most appropriate for you. Many times we here on research cannot make that decision for you. You know your places and you know your areas much better than we do. But we have here the resources and information for you to probably select a good grass or a good plant with a right fertilization program and install that in your property and be successful. That's what we provide here. But when I think about the lack of planning on establishing a grass, I always remember my wife going shopping. Because that's what happens all the time. She goes shopping, she doesn't have a plan, that can get long and expensive. So if you eventually don't have a plan, I am concerned that what's going to happen. You're going to plant something, will not be persistent, will die, you have to redo it, and now you are putting all your money and time over there doing something that is not really appropriate and doesn't really work for you. So I will not even tell you more. I will just show you 2 examples here. I brought some plants here, and you all know what this is, right? People from South Florida know. This is a limpo grass plant, okay? That is a limpo grass plant that has been fertilized and watered really well, okay? That is the standard. And this is a limpo grass plant that have been under flooding for 14 days. Is there any different? It's even better, isn't it? Okay, that's the first point. Here, I have a mulatto plant that have been under really good fertilization and water system. Looks good, right? This mulatto is highly digestible. It's probably one of the most digestible warm season grasses that we have here. And very productive. However, look at what happened when 14 days have been under flooding. It's dying, right? So if you have a place and you have poorly drained soils, and we have seen a lot of those here in South Florida, and you decide to plant the wrong species, that's what's going to happen to you. You will not be productive, and very likely you will die. So that's the importance of matching the resources that you have with the materials that we have available. So that is just one example. And now, before talking about any other species, I would like to call my presentation today, why not Bahia grass? Why not Bahia grass? You all have Bahia grass, right? Is there anybody here that doesn't have a Bahia grass even in the backyard? Because it has been around for a long time. If you don't have it, you will have it. It's not a question of choice, it's just a matter of when you're going to have it. And we have been doing research with Bahia grass here, and Bahia grass got a really bad reputation because people think that it's not productive and doesn't have good nutritive value. This is all, I think, in my opinion, not really true. Bahia grass can be productive, Bahia grass can have good nutritive value. And we have to remember, when you plant a grass, we want two main things. A warm season perennial grass. First of all, it needs to be persistent. It needs to survive. We don't want it to go back and plant it again next year, right? We want it to plant and be there forever. That's why it's called perennial. Because otherwise you just plant annual, right? The perennial, we want it to be persistent. The other thing is we need that grass to supply enough feed for the livestock to survive and produce, right? Bahia grass will meet those requirements very well. The thing is, if you make mistakes with Bahia grass, you'll be very resilient. Will not die. And if you manage it right, you can have the most of your Bahia grass that it can be highly productive and have really high nutritive value. This afternoon, we'll take a look at some plots where we have 4 different Bahia grasses. We have the Riada, Tifton 9, Pensacola, and Argentina. And we are grazing those at 2 and 4 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks will pretty much simulate what is a continuous stocking. When you leave those animals to graze the pasture all the time, you don't move them around. The 4 weeks is if you actually give that grass a break, and that grass will have 4 weeks regrowth, okay? With no cattle, just to regrow and get back on their feet, and you're gonna put cattle back. What we saw is you can have up to 30% more production with the same fertilization program, same everything. But if you rotate your cattle and give that Bahia grass 4 weeks, you're going to produce 30% more. You didn't really do anything other than put a fence on between. That's a lot. You're going to have 30% increase in production. Do you imagine to have 30% increase in salary right now? So it's just a decision of setting up a fence and moving your cattle. Again, the protein of that Bahia grass is 12%. That will even meet the protein requirements of a first calf cattle. Is Bahia grass bad? No. It's not bad. It's actually pretty good. And again, I am telling you on a really low input system. Because the other thing that we all have in common here, other than Bahia grass, is we all probably in agreement here that nitrogen fertilizer is not as cheap as it was before, right? It is not. So if you plant a Bahia grass and you have a limited budget for fertilizer, and let's say that we are fertilizing 60 pounds to the acre in the spring, that's considered like a low input system. So if you just manage your cattle differently, you're going to have 30% increase in production. So we have ways to manage our Bahia grass to be a better grass and fit better in your production system. And we need to explore those options before we think about to plant something else. And we do have a lot of options that came here from this center and came from other different places on Bermuda grass and star grass. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the limpo grass, because we probably think the limpo grass is the second most important one for us here in South Florida. And why? Because it's wet. That's why it's so good. Because limpo grass is the only one that will survive under those wet conditions. I mean, improved grasses for grazing or hay. Limpo grass is probably you're going to plant limpo grass in a place where nothing else would grow. And you still have a good pasture, great nutritive value, and a lot of options, like stockpiling or even cut some hay when it's dry or hay. So limpo grass is probably the other one that we need to explore, but on the limpo grass that is a completely different game compared to the bahia grass that I just mentioned to you. Again, if you manage a limpo grass pasture the same way that you manage your bahia grass, you ended up with a bahia grass. That's pretty simple. If you don't leave 10 inches of stubble height on that limpo grass, you will not have a stand in 3 years. You'll have a pretty good common Bermuda grass or bahia grass field. That is known. Everybody knows that. In order to make that stand persistent, we need to graze it in a way that we leave the stubble height. We have to leave the stubble height because that plant is not bahia grass. Bahia grass, if you dig, 50% of dry matter is below ground. It has all the rhizomes and sugars underneath the surface. But the limpo grass doesn't have that privilege. It's pretty shallow, and they have a lot of roots, but doesn't have the thick rhizomes that the bahia grass has. So if you kill the top, it's pretty much it. Okay? And will not come back. So if you decide you have a good place for that limpo grass, you need to be aware that you need to graze it right. And we have research showing that that's probably much more information than we'd like to have, but that plant needs to capture about 95% of the sunlight that comes from the top. If that plant captures 95%, is at his full potential, right? And when you graze it, you're going to leave that 10 inches, and those leaves will act like a satellite dish. Just get the sun back and put in new regrowth. If you graze it too short, there is nothing left for that plant to capture light. And what's happening? The plant is using reserves from the roots. Pretty soon those reserves are gone, and the plant dies. And you give the option for other plants that you don't want it to come up. And that would be my talk on the grazing management. I just want to mention something also that I include in your proceedings about haylage. And that is probably the second most frequent question in my program now. It's amazing because in the past, people look at you and say, hey, to make silage or haylage is too much work. That is for dairy producers. And that used to be, because you need to chop it up, put it on a bunk, and press it with a tractor. It was a lot of work. So many people was not really willing to do all that work and have all those machineries and everything. But now we have those machines, those wrappers, that make our life much easier. So it's really exciting because you come with your hay machine, you just make a round bale, wrap it up, and that's it. That's haylage or silage or whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, one constraint in that process is our grasses are not very good to make silage. They are not very good because they don't have a lot of soluble sugars for fermentation. Silage and haylage, it has fermentation. Hay, it doesn't. You dry the grass. But the silage and haylage, you have it. So you don't have to start with the right material to make that silage. Even if it's a very good warm season grass, it still will be short on the amount of sugars and carbohydrates that we need to have the right fermentation and preservation. So you can do little things to try to improve the quality of your haylage if you are eventually making haylage. And one thing really important is to let it wilt. The dry matter needs to come down to 50% at least. It can go in the range from between 40 to 60, depends on your condition, but that material needs to be dry. You cannot put that wet material in the bag right away because what's going to happen is now you don't have the sugars for fermentation and you have highly low dry matter material with a lot of water. That is the condition that all the microbes that you don't want it to grow, like Clostridium and all of those undesirable bacteria that you don't want in your silo. So now you have a bad material. You open your silo, it's all white. It's smelling like butyric acid. That is a really bad smell. You feel it. You know, you smell it and even feel it. So if you don't do these simple steps, first of all, dry the material. Dry before you put in the bag. Don't think that just because the machine you wrap, you can just cut it and wrap it up and you'll be done. No, you need to dry that material to 50%. The other thing is, If you put trash in, you'll be trash out. That fermentation doesn't make the forage any better. What will come out of the silage will be worse than what you put in, most of the time. So, if you put something good, you probably will end up with something that will be acceptable. If you put something bad, that will not be a miracle. Something really bad will come out. So, the other thing, if you are willing, because if you think about the price per ton of dry matter, that haylage is more expensive. You have the bag cost, you have, although you can make more per acre, but you still have the high moisture compared to hay. So when you have all the maintenance of the bags, wildlife come and punch it, you need to fence around, and you have all this additional cost when you make the haylage, so you need to get something that will be good to start with. And the other question is about the inoculants. That is another thing that, when I talk to people around the state, every year they have a salesman show up with a different one. And that will be the best one. But next year another one will come. So we don't have really good evidence that any of the inoculants that we have on the market will improve the nutritive value of your haylage. We don't have. So right now, if I need to make a haylage here at the center, I do not include that inoculant. Excuse me. Because I think that we don't have any scientific data to support the use of inoculants. Some people consider that as a good insurance. So you need to probably make your calculations to see how much will cost that insurance for your forage system and your enterprise. I think right now we don't have enough evidence to include those inoculants. So with that said, I think that will be my portion of the program today, and I'll be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Right. So do you consider Bahia grass quality enough to make haylage out of?
The question from Roy was if I consider Bahia grass with enough good nutritive value to make a haylage of. Absolutely, it is. The only problem, Roy, as you know, the production of Bahia grass many times is reduced. So you're going to have the same fixed cost to harvest 2,000 pounds of forage, or you can have the same cost and you're going to harvest like a star grass hay field with 4,000 pounds. That is the main limitation. The Bahia grass will not be as productive, so you'll be harvesting less material. So that will increase your cost per bale in that manner. But absolutely, in the nutritive value standpoint, Bahia grass is good enough to justify that. Our Bahia grass data from our lab here, I used to tell people that is really biased. I show the report every year showing that our Bahia grass hay come with protein of 6-7% and digestibility of 49-50. And that's biased because nobody really has a Bahia grass hay field. What they do have is pastures that they graze year long, and they come in the fall and they just cut it. And they call that hay and send me the sample, so that will be included in the database. Do you understand? It's not really a hay field. It's not hay that you fertilize and you cut every 4 weeks. That is a cleanup. You can make the Bahia grass good if you cut every 4 weeks and you fertilize it well. You'll be really good. But if you don't manage well, the result will be 7% protein and 40-90 yen.
What is the forage protein requirement for raising mature cow in a stand of grass and for a growing cow?
And Sean asked about what will be the nutrient requirement for a mature cow grazing and a growing animal. And that will vary, and probably we'll have people that will be more appropriate to talk about that, but we'll have different in the size of the cow and breeds and everything else. But I would say if you have a dry cow, mature cow, the requirement will be between 7 and 8%. When you have a growing heifer, that requirement can go up to 12, 13% food protein. So, and if you have a lactating cow, it will be between 10 and 11% protein. Thank you. thing is harvesting, this is grazing with the cows. They come here every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. So, and we have this for a year now. And what we have seen is the places where we graze every 4 weeks, as I mentioned to you in my presentation, they produce 30% more dry mass than the places that we graze every 2 weeks. And what we have seen is when we count the number of tillers, like these small girls here, those places that have been grazed for 4 weeks, they have more tillers. What happens? We are stressing the grass here to the point that the tillers are dying because we graze it too often and we graze it short. Those plots were only fertilized once in the spring with 60 pounds of nitrogen a day. And we did that because that is probably a very common practice here in Florida. That's what we do with Bahia grass. One shot in the spring and that's it. If you want to spend more money with fertilizer, probably we would have a different species that would be more productive. In this case, the Bahia grass work really well. And there are many points to be talked about here in this plot. One thing is, do you like what you are seeing on the Bahia grass? Do you think that's a good stand? What do you think? But do you think this is good? My point is, even when you abuse the grass, it's still here. It will not die. Okay? Yeah. Few ones here and on the edges you're gonna see more and a little bit here and there. But in general, you'll see that it's a pretty good stand. Even when you don't apply the fertilizer, even when you graze it short, every time will be there. That's one thing to consider. If you have that in your production system, so you're not willing to fertilize, you don't have a lot of time to manage, you're going to overstock many times, that is the grass for you. And if you want to be productive, that may be the grass for you too. You know, do you have a question?
Any reason not to rest
well, 4 weeks is... Yeah, longer than 4 weeks, what happens with the digestibility of Bahia grass just falls. Really hard. Because they start to send seed head. On the proportion is the leaves will be there, but you start seeing seed head. And that's what will decrease the nutritive value of the plant. So if you let it go longer than 4 weeks, you can do that. You can go 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and probably you're going to have more mass. But you will not have the same nutritive value. And the Bahia grass, what happens is not on the digestibility standpoint, is not very good anyway. Will not be as good as the mulatto, will not be as good as the Tifton 85. But you can have some acceptable rates, that 4 weeks. You can have something that will be good. That will be close to 55% again. That's probably the target. So you'll not get something 65, you'll not have the digestibility of rhizoma, but you're going to have something that can keep your cows alive and produce. That's what you're going to get. And the other point here, you see, if you see the history of Bahia grass breeding, is Tifton 9 is a selection of Pensacola. And Riata is a selection of Pensacola too. What you're going to see is the Riata and Tifton 9, they select the plants that have more right growth. If you go on a Tifton 9 pasture or a Riata pasture, you'll see the grass is taller. And that makes you think that's more productive many times because it's upright, it's taller. You don't have those many tillers running close to the ground. But what we saw here, although it was almost 2 inches taller on the Tifton 9 and the Riata, the production was similar. We didn't see any difference in production. So it may look taller and more productive, but during the summer, the time that we evaluate those plots, the production of all 4 were very similar. We know that the Riata, it was selected to produce more from now on, going in the fall. That was the objective of the selection. But still, the plants that were selected was the most upright. And again, comparing those 4, we didn't see any difference in nutritive values. They were very similar. So production was similar during the summer, nutritive value was very similar. However, those plants, the Tifton 9 and the Riata, were taller compared to Argentina and Pensacola. And we will do this work for at least 2 years, probably 3 years. And one thing in this low input system that we want to see is persistence. We want to see that if after 3 years, grazing it short, if you're going to have those plants here. And that's what we expected, but we don't know the results. Hopefully we will.
Are you putting water on there?
No, no. It's all dry land. And right now you can see, because we have here 4 weeks regrowth, and we don't have much regrowth because it has been dry for a little while.
When do you fertilize it in the spring?
May. We didn't May. This year we did in May because it was before we started the trial. We got some showers in May, that's when we did. But I think for most producers here in Florida, they will do earlier. They will do probably late March. Or sometime, even early March. This year was a mistake, right? Because we have that cold winter, somebody fertilized early March and they got a freeze by late March and all the regrowth was done. So it is always a gamble.
If you graze this short this time of year, what are you going to do through the winter when grass stops growing?
Your question is if you graze it really short,
As short as you got right there.
what will be the outcome
Right.
in the winter? Nothing will happen.
The grass quit growing there in the winter. Don't
You grow a little bit, but very little.
they? What the cows going to eat then?
Yeah, now you need to provide something. Because that is the problem. In the summer, everybody's happy, right?
Right.
In the summer, everybody's happy. But that's why in the production system, you need to have different things. If you have only bahia grass for summer and winter, that will not work. Because we know that we starve. But what you're going to have here, we have a system that we graze bahia grass in the summer, and we bale limpo grass, or we stockpile limpo grass for the fall. And a lot of bush hogs going back and forth. And they are cleaning the pastures early in the fall, or in the fall. So they don't have any regrowth in the winter, right? Very little. And they go in the spring, and you've got little regrowth, they probably graze some, and they started over. So why to bush hog in the fall? What is the reason? Because, yeah, probably just to make, if it make you feel good, that's okay. I mean, it's like mowing weeds. If it make you feel good, that's okay. You do it, and that's fine. But if you were mowing that pasture in the fall, you probably are killing something that you might need later on. So for many people, that's what they have. And hay is expensive. You can afford, so you need to graze that old bahia grass over there. And you can have something, again, it will not be good, but it's the only thing that you have. Better than nothing.
Last year, for example, I planted high standing. However, we had about a freeze every 10 days last year. And I'm sure they'll have to down itself.
Yeah. And
It's still better now.
exactly. And then that's the point. So what else do you have to compare with that? If you don't have anything, that's good. That's what you have. So again, it's something that you need to think about, that management of bahia grass in the fall. You need to, if you have something over there, it's probably you can graze as long as you can and save some money on hay if you eventually are killing it. Yeah, and there are some options in the supplementation to help. Will not make your forage any better, but will help probably on the animal standpoint.
Is there a time frame that you can graze to get down to that freeze once you turn the cows on there? Stop mentioning if you have, how quick a time should it take to get that put in?
Right. And that's a good question. And again, that is very dependent on your growth, your conditions, the fertilization program that you use, the size of your pasture. That is a very subjective question. It's probably what will be perfect for you will not be for a lot of people here. But I think the 7 days grazing time is somewhat easy to manage because it's easy to include in the calendar. If you have one pasture, just one, I would consider just splitting in half and have 2 pastures. So you move the animals every 2 months.